Good afternoon, Gills fans, and welcome back to Gills in the Blood TV. Only one person to talk about today, Cody McDonald. Rumoured yesterday on social media that he has had a medical with another football club in the last 48 hours and will not be renewing his contract with the Gills. Plenty of chat, plenty of debate and discussion across all platforms on social media since that announcement. I believe it came from the ex-Gills media man Nick Ball. Whether he should be leaving, whether he should be staying, whether the club should be doing more to keep hold of him, offering more money, longer terms, etc. Obviously that's all conjecture because we don't actually know what he has been offered originally, so it's all just opinion and estimations, so to speak, at the moment. But just going to have a look at Cody in terms of goal scoring at the football club and compare him to other people within the club's 124-year history. 81 goals in 223 games. That is Codys record. And if ever at a quiz and you get asked the question, what do Brian Yeo, Hughie Russell, Tug Wilson, Tony Cascarino, Brian Gibbs, Steve Lovell, Damien Richardson and Ken Price all have in common? They are the only people in the history of the football club to have scored more goals than Super Cody McDonald. And of those, only 4 people, Brian Yeo, Big Cass, Stevie Lovell and Brian Gibson, have a better goals to game ratio than Cody's 0.363 per game. Yes, Tug Wilson and Hughie Russell statistically do have a better record, but it has to be taken into account that their goals were scored in regional league games and not just football league fixtures, so it's a slightly misleading stat that. But in the more modern era, like I said, it's just 4 that have a better goals to game ratio than Cody McDonald. So is it the right decision that we're letting him go or not offering him better terms? To put it bluntly, Cody is effectively 9th all-time goal scorer for the football club and 5th best goals per game, as the 5th best goals per game ratio in 124 years of Gillingham Football Club. Obviously there's arguments and counter-arguments as to whether he should stay or should go. I think the majority, to be fair, of those that are adamant he should stay are of the younger generation, which is fine, because let's be honest, in the last few years we've not had what you could class as cult heroes or legends in terms of goal scorers. Cody's probably the standout over the sort of last 5 to 10 years. Before that we had Simeon Jackson, but he didn't hang around long enough. Go back to sort of the late 90s and the early 2000s and we had Carlos Saba and Super Bob Taylor, but again they moved on a lot sooner and went on to bigger clubs or better things or whatever you want to label it. So you can understand why the younger generation of fans are so adamant that Cody should stay. He's synonymous with this football club over the last few years, and to back that up, his goal scoring record stands up. My own personal opinion on it is that we should be doing all we can to keep Cody at the football club. As I say, over 80 goals in just over 200 appearances. It's up there with the best that this club's had. So I think I'll have a little look and try and back that up. Why I've done a bit of research. I'm not just going to rabble on and for the sake of saying Cody should stay this and that. I've had a look, and in terms of statistics, 2010-11 he arrived and he scored 25 times in 43 appearances. Was the 3rd highest scorer in League 2. He was Gills' top scorer. Then he came back in 2012-13 for a shorter loan spell, and I think he played 7 times and scored 4 goals before we signed him on a permanent deal. 2013-14 and 2014-15 he was our top scorer. He was 8th and 10th in the whole division in them 2 campaigns as well. 2015-16 unfortunately was massively interrupted by injury. If you can all remember correctly, I think he broke down in pre-season, didn't come back until a few games in. I think his first goal was in September against Fleetwood, and then he got games under his belt and unfortunately broke his foot at Millwall, and then he came back at the end of the season. He only scored 5 goals in that campaign. But in fairness to Cody, I'm not making excuses for those that are in the Cody out camp, that's fine. But obviously it's difficult to gain any sort of rhythm or momentum when you have to keep coming back from injuries. But then last season, 50 games and he scored 12 goals. Again, he was a high scoring striker, second highest scorer for the club, behind Josh Wright. But you have to remember this was in a side that wasn't playing to his strengths, that wasn't playing well, that played one up top. And if I recall correctly, he said himself midway through the season at 30 years of age, he was trying to adapt to a new role, trying to play a different role up top on his own, and it was taking some getting used to, but he still scored some big goals. Obviously the older generation remember the likes of the Yeos and the Cascarinos and the Richardsons, etc., and the Lovells. So they have more sort of comparison that they can make, because if you look at that top 10 of goal scorers, I don't think any of them really played past the early 90s. So there's not a lot from sort of about 93 when Stevie Lovell stopped up until Cody McDonald, all on his own really now. So you can understand why, excuse me, the older generation of fans appreciate that, or can probably take it or leave it. But I can also see the counter argument from the younger fans why they're so adamant that they think Cody McDonald should stay at the football club. And yes, he is in his 30s now, obviously, so you can understand why the club have maybe offered him slightly different terms to what previous contract offers they put on the table to him. But for me, I think he's still got plenty to offer. If you break it down further, obviously he scored 29 of his goals for us in 50 games in League 2, which is 0.580 goals per game, which is a terrific effort. But in League 1, 52 in 173 games is by no means a disaster. It's 0.30 goals per game. So if you work that out over a 46 league game season, that's 13, which gets you into the top 10 goal scorers in the division every season, looking back statistically. And again, we can go back to the fact that he's played in a slightly different role more recently. He's had a season of injuries recently. Yes, the counter argument could be that he is slightly on the wane now. He might have lost a slight bit of pace. But for me, I still think he's one of the best and one of the most natural finishers available in League 1. And if we play him in a correct system, I'd be confident that he'd score 15 plus league goals at least. You only have to look at that in 14-15 and 13-14, when he scored 18 and 17. He was playing with partners, people that were sort of target man's link men that he could play on the shoulder of. I think if we could get him back to doing that, I'd be confident that with a good pre-season and injury-free campaign, he'd do that again. But yes, you can understand why some are not so disappointed that he may be moving on if it frees up a wage. And I guess, like some have said, we have to wait and see what the replacements are come July the 1st or, the first league game of the season. But enough of the statistics now. I'm just going to go through a few of my personal favourite memories of Cody McDonald. Obviously, the first one is 2010-11 when he first arrived, and he played in League 2 and scored well over 20 goals. And at times it was like he almost single-handedly got us into the playoffs that campaign. We was unlucky and missed out on goal difference. But in terms of his own personal statistics, he was absolutely brilliant at that level. And then he arrived back in 2012-13 for a shorter spell under Martin Allen, and I think he scored 4 goals in 7 games. We only lost one of them 7 games when he was here. And I think he scored 1 equaliser and 2 winners. So he was directly responsible for 7 points out of 14 that we won during that loan spell, which was excellent. It kept the momentum going as we tried to close in on the title. And he played a big part. I know it was only 7 games, but it was still a big part of the success that we achieved that season. In terms of goals and moments, individual moments, Walsall, the overhead kick from the edge of the box was absolutely brilliant, absolutely superb technique, a brilliant goal. That was in 2013-14, 2014-15, late penalty winner at home to Peterborough, showed nerves of steel in the last minute to tuck it away in front of a Pat Raynham end. I think there was plenty of people surrounding the goal, which could have been off-putting. I'm sure the fans were trying to put off the keeper, but obviously it's created more of an atmosphere and probably more pressure on Cody, but he tucked it away. Later on in that season, if I recall rightly, we'd not won from that penalty in September up until the middle of November, and in a frantic game against Leyton Orient, I think we'd gone down to 10 men. Michael Doughty got sent off for 2 bookings for chucking the ball away, and then Cody popped up in injury time on the half volley from a Brennan Dickinson corner, and the Rainimen went off that afternoon. It was an absolutely superb strike under pressure. I think I nearly broke a seat that day. Apologies, football club. But yeah, that was just, for me, that just sums up what Cody was all about, being in the right place at the right time and tucking it away under pressure when we needed him most. 2014-15, shortly after Justin Edinburgh had come in, Swindon away. I wasn't there live, unfortunately, but the back heel and then the lob against them was joyful for everyone. I'm sure if he was in the crowd, it must have been absolutely brilliant, but it was good enough watching it on the telly, en route to a massive 3-0 win. 2015-16, like we've said already, was unfortunately hindered by massive injury problems, but free kick at home to Shrewsbury when we were still trying to hang on to the playoff place was absolute thunderbolt. I think it got rolled to him by Dacky. He was about 25-30 yards out and just arrowed it straight as a die at what looked like about 100 mile an hour, straight into the top corner, the very definition of net buster. And he was very good that day. Unfortunately, the playoff dream unravelled and we didn't quite make it into the top 6, but Cody again left us with another special memory. And then obviously as recently as last season in April, Bristol Rovers, them 2 goals. The first one where he's shaken off the centre half and spun him, drilled it from the edge of the box into the top corner in front of the Rainimen when we needed him most. Plenty have said it effectively kept us up, and that you're not too far wrong. To then top it off, he showed great composure a few minutes later. Another long ball down the middle, shrugged off the centre half and lobbed the advancing keeper. And I think the big hug with him and Adi Pennock was almost one of the big moments towards the end of the season that almost said we are in this together. You've probably all got your own. You've probably got plenty more. There's probably plenty more that I've missed, because such is the man and such is the player that is Cody McDonald. Not just on the pitch, but even the time for the fans that he takes, whether it's a clap here or a thumbs up to fans here, or acknowledging us when we're singing his name during games, or going a little bit further, having photos taken and a chat with the fans and the younger fans. He is Mr. Gillingham, it seems, at the moment. I, for one, would be very disappointed if he does move on. I'm sure he's obviously doing it for his own reasons, and he's got to look after his family, etc., so you can understand it. But as I've said already, for me, we should be doing all we can to keep him at the football club. I still think he has plenty to offer. I still think he'd score plenty for us next season if he does line up in that famous number 10 shirt. Anyway, that's my opinion on it. You all have your own. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for liking. Please keep doing so. Please keep subscribing. And until next time, up the Gills.